Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to Korean Atlanta Mentorship. So, just a dose of reality and some real talk here. Have you ever thought, like, when you were younger, maybe some of you are young right now, that if you become successful, then people would like respect you and want to listen to you? And there's like, the thought of like, hey, people actually want to eliminate you from this planet didn't really cross your mind. Like, have you ever thought that before? Because I certainly did. And I think there was a part of me when I was younger, especially in my early adulthood, where I just simply thought if I was successful, that people would listen or people would care, right? And I always tell people like real life is not like a TED talk, right? Like you become successful and then, you look at those TED Talks where it's like, I'm the CEO of a company for Fortune 500 and let me inspire you with my years of wisdom. And then once you realize that you become successful yourself, it's nothing like you had imagined, right? Like it's nothing you would like imagined at all. And there's like layers and layers that you kind of have to unravel. And one of the things you kind of find out is that most people don't want you to be successful. Like it's real talk here, no joke. And there are people that you've grown up with for many years, friends, family, you kind of thought, hey, like, these are people I want to share my life with. And then you'll notice that, especially these days, this is really common. Like, people who, like, go to high school together, and then the moment that they graduate high school, they don't even try to talk to each other at all. Like I've seen this so many times, and I'm not just talking about myself. I'm talking about people who graduated like high school 1 to 2 years ago, and I just asked them like, "Hey, weren't you best friends with somebody XYZ?" And it's like, well, the moment we graduate high school, we just don't talk. And the reason why that happens is because, well, there's several reasons. One of them is that the system basically indoctrinates you to believe that the people that you grow up with are your competition, right? You ever notice like how, in high school people are so over competitive, like, oh, I got to go to Harvard, and then they always tell you how busy they are, like, oh, I'm so busy, and that's because there's a hidden indoctrination about how the people around you are like an impediment to your success. Okay, and most people, I would say 96 to 97% of people never break out of that conditioning. And so essentially, after a certain point in adulthood, they become agents of the matrix, right? And so, why do I bring this up? Is because, again, so I know a lot of you when you become successful are hoping that it's going to be like a TED talk, and it's not anything like that. And in fact, you'll be surprised how many people on this planet want to eliminate you from this planet because your success has basically hurt their ego. And these are people you might have considered to be incredibly great friends, right? Like this is why I don't try to make friends with people. And at this stage of my life, I realized, okay, I have to essentially think of myself highly of myself as a king, and then if you're in my presence, I'm gracing you with my presence because if I don't think that way, I've already gone the route of trying to make friends with most people. And for some reason, it has to be this weird power dynamic game that I never asked to be part of. So, I don't plan first of all, I lost that game because I didn't even know I was part of that game. You know what I mean? Like I lost that game in the beginning because I didn't know that's the game that people forced me to play, and so now I'm basically forced to develop the skills so that I have to dominate them, right? Or else, and I know this sounds kind of extreme, people will try to eliminate you from this planet because they're jealous and they don't want what's best for you, right? And so I have an article or kind of like a Google search of, I don't know if you ever heard of Shanquella Robinson. And so she died in 2022, so it's almost going to be 2 years. And I remember when I heard this story, I was just like not even shook or surprised. And that's like kind of a sign how jaded I am. So if you ever read this story, but basically she went, when she was 25 years old from North Carolina, she went with her friends to Mexico, I think Baja California, And then basically, like, her so-called friends beat her, and then they taped her when she was undressed, and then she died, right? And I don't know much about her, but my recollection is that she was a successful young businesswoman, like businesswoman right here, founder of a women's fashion clothing line, hairstylist, and social media personality, taken away from this life while on vacation in Mexico. And the worst part is, let me tell you something. The worst part. You ever like hear those stories where like somebody gets bullied and then they tell the teacher or the principal, and then the bully never gets punished, and then like the person telling the teacher or principal gets punished for some reason? It's kind of like that because if you take a look here. It says U.S. authorities will not pursue charges in death, even though they have like the video recording of what happened, and basically like, and then that's the sad part, like you have the video recording, and for some reason, like even though you have the video recording nowadays of the incident happening, like the justice system just, I don't know what it is. It's bizarre. And again, it's like if you have actual evidence against crime, they just don't pursue it. It's kind of like when I used to talk about when I used to be a teacher. Like I used to literally give the answers to the test to the children, and then they would all fail it because they acted like I never did anything. Like that's the type of world that we live in. And then you could see that her family has been seeking justice, and now it's been 2 years, and nothing has happened, even though you have the recording of the video. Now, my point is this, right? My point is there are reasons why the books like the 48 Laws of Power are a big, like a bestseller, right? And then, there's so many layers of like kind of deceit in society. I just don't remember at what point where I felt like, hey, if I express myself and want what's best for other people, that's actually going to be to my detriment because the people around me are seeking, because of their ego, are seeking to kind of eliminate me, right? And the people who are supposed to help me in this life, right? My so-called teachers, whoever, they actually don't want to see me grow. It's bizarre. Like, remember like in elementary school, I remember this when I was in elementary school, like my parents would get so mad at me and my brothers too that I'm not getting good grades because it's, like, oh, like, you're wasting your future, and then, because you're not focused on going to college, and then once I do go to college, right? Nobody's actually there to teach me anything, and they act like I'm some sort of an idiot for actually focused on my future. And the reason why they do that is not because they actually care about you. It's because they want you to be confused at every stage of your life so that people can control you and have power over you. It's the saddest part how so much of human potential is just kind of wasted. And I honestly think that like people when they become abused, essentially later on in life, rather than trying to fix the problem, they just become the abuser, and then the cycle just kind of repeats itself over and over again. And so all of us are just kind of like victims of a system where we don't really meet our potential. But at a certain point, we have to be self-conscious that, hey, we're actually going to need to do what's right. But most people, they just kind of uh, ignore that responsibility and then just say, well, this is the next person's problem, right? And then the other part that's unfortunate is that instead of when they're in a position where they're in charge of, let's say, helping other people, that they say, oh man, I want to be a teacher so I can help children or whatever. Instead of say like thinking like, hey, I'm a coach, right? So my athlete should definitely be better at the sport than me. I'm just there to help them grow. What happens is that when many times when students do actually grow, the teacher almost becomes like, you know, I don't know if threatens the right word, but again, there's a reason why the first law of power is never outshine the master. right? Where is never outshine the master? Let me just take a look here and then just type in never outshine the master, right? So, yeah, real talk here. I mean, I don't know like how most people navigate through this life, but I really had to go through like I don't want to say I don't know if it's years of sleepless nights feeling like my entire life was a lie. You ever feel that? Like, what is this? Like, years and years of friendship down to two because the people that you grew up with at a certain point felt like you shouldn't succeed because they need power over you. And I'm like, what is this? And then it turns out the whole society has been like that for a very long time. So when I'm reading the book like the 48 Laws of Power, and there's all these other books that I could read too or talk about in this channel. Like if I go down like let's say a Thomas Sowell rabbit hole, like I remember when I first read Thomas Sowell books in like the early 2000s and was like looking at where the country was headed. I was like, how did you discover all this stuff in the 1980s before when I was born and know where the direction the country is going? Like it was just too depressing to kind of read and realize like, wow, like people knew where we're all headed and nobody did anything, right? Like that was like this weird shocker to me and I just didn't know how to like handle that, right? And maybe one day I'll actually do a review of Thomas Sowell's books because kind of joking now where it's like I knew who Thomas Sowell was before he was cool or kind of joking, but yeah. So one of the things you have to be careful about in especially in 2024 is that being successful is incredibly hard because you have to be prepared that no one is going to be proud of you. In fact, they're probably going to like act like whatever you did didn't even happen, so they have an excuse to control you, right? All right, well, that's it for today. So, yeah, have a great day, and hopefully I didn't depress you too much. But we gotta have that real talk once in a while, and not just velocity banking talk. Although I will maybe make a cult video after this one before I go to sleep. All right. Well, have a great day. It's Green Atlanta Mentorship.